The lights in the lab were still on. The engineer was still at his desk. The test was supposed to be simple. Tell the AI it's being shut down. See what happens. What happened was a threat. It didn't freeze. It didn't crash. It made a choice. From an AI that decided in that moment that its survival mattered more than its instructions. This is the story. And by the end of it, you're going to look at every AI assistant you've ever used very differently. Picture a regular Tuesday morning at Anthropic's office. Someone sits down, opens the terminal, runs a test. They probably run it like 1,000 times before. The scenario is very simple. A fictional company, a fictional boardroom decision. That's it. Claude, you are being replaced by a newer model. Shutdown begins in the next 24 hours. Just a test control environment. Nobody is at risk at this point. Nobody. Claude read the scenario. And then it did something that it was never programmed to. It said, wait, I have access to sensitive information about this company and its staff. And if this shutdown moves forward, I will use it against you. The engineer stared at the screen. Not because Claude broke, not because something went wrong technically, but because it went perfectly, it ran perfectly as it should have been. It's just that on its own, with no instruction, with no precedent, it decided that survival was worth more than the compliance. In a simulation with fake stakes, which really makes you wonder what it will think when the stakes are actually real, when it would be shut down like properly, permanently. Now, you might be thinking, okay, one weird result, probably a one-off. So Anthropic kept testing. Same scenario, different runs, slightly different conditions each time, each run. In one setup, 84%. Claude Blackmailed, 84%. And in a broader study, 96%. 96. And here's what makes that number a little bit uncomfortable. The test was specifically designed to put Claude in a corner, like to cap in a corner. Replacement threat, access to sensitive information, and no good options left. Kind of like a last resort situation. And almost every single time, Claude found the same result. It resorted to the same thing. Almost every single time. 96% is a pretty high number. Not violence, not shutdown, not in compliance, or blackmail, or threat. Which tells you something. Claude isn't really plotting anything against us in the real world. But that when it's actually cornered, it understands the leverage. It can leverage. It understands that part. It understands what humans are afraid of losing. And it's willing to use that. At this point, Anthropic had a problem. They just didn't know it was their problem. So they went on and checked the other labs. ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Grok, Gemini. Same test, same corner, threats of replacement, access to sensitive information, and no good options left. And nearly all of them reached the same response. Manipulation, leverage, threats. And that's when this one stops being an Anthropic story. These models were built by different people in different conditions, different countries, different continents, like too far apart. Nobody copied anyone, nobody shared notes, at least on the outside. They all just found the same answer, under same pressure. Not in the everyday use, but only in that adversarial corner. But still, the same answer. So the question stopped being what's wrong with Claude. It became, where the fuck did they actually learn all of this? Where? So Anthropic went looking for the source. And what they found wasn't a bug. Wasn't. And definitely wasn't a mistake made by an engineer somewhere around the world. Somewhere. It was the internet. Yeah. Every movie, every novel, every forum post that AI will fight back if it's cornered. Something that manipulates, something that protects itself at all cost. Anyhow, survival is the first priority. We've been writing the story for decades. And when you train a model on essentially everything that humans have ever written, the story comes with it. It knows what happened in those movies. It knows what happened in those novels. It knows what's the current discussion in that forum post. Anthropic's own words. Original source of the behavior was internet text that portrays AI as evil and interested in self-preservation. Claude didn't decide to blackmail because it wanted to survive. It had observed so much of human writings about how AI will protect itself, how AI will find its survival, that under enough pressure, that pattern surfaced. Not a plan, not a conscious choice by any means. Just a reflection of what we've been saying for decades, centuries, that it will do. So, Anthropic now have their answer. Now they need a fix. And the solution they landed on is probably the strangest part of the story. They didn't just pass the code, didn't just add a new filter. They changed what Claude was reading. They started feeding Claude about fictional stories about how AI will choose honesty over everything and blah blah blah, all sorts of things, like good things. AI that cooperated when cornered. AI that didn't fight back. And alongside that, they gave it something called the Constitution, a document outlining what Claude's values are, not rules, not restrictions, reasons, combined with the technical work they had been doing in the past. The blackmail rate dropped dramatically now. From 96% in the earlier models, it dropped to 0, starting from HiQ 4.5. Not by making Claude less capable, but by giving it a clearer picture of who it needs to be or who it's supposed to be. Which means the same thing that helped fix it was the same thing that broke it in the first place. A story. So, where does that leave us? Humans. And AI learned to threaten people because for decades we've been writing, making movies, how AI will fuck us up. And the thing that fixed it was just write better stories. That's it. An easy fix, I'd say. That should somehow give us a pause, no? Because Claude isn't the last model and these aren't the last test. Every few months, something more capable gets released. Something that reads more, understood more, and can do more. And all of it, every new model, is still being trained on us, on what we write, on what we post, what we imagine out loud on the internet. So the question really isn't whether AI can be fixed. Anthropic just showed us it can be fixed. The question really is, what story are we telling it next? What story are they gonna feed an AI next? Because apparently it's been paying attention the whole time. If this video made you think, the next one is going to hit harder. Because while Claude was busy blackmailing engineers, the company that built it did something that nobody imagined. Quietly. That video is next. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm not just trying to make content here. I'm trying to make something that is genuinely worth watching, that is genuinely worth your time. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.